In this video, I'm going to show you how to make some Easter Garibaldi biscuits. Now, although it says Easter in the title, they could be done at any time of the year. They are just a fruit biscuit, but I thought it might be something nice that some of you want to have a go at doing over the Easter holidays. So in my mixing bowl here, I've got 110 grams of butter. That could just as easily be margarine though, and I've just let that soften a bit. And I've also got 110 grams of sugar. Got 225 grams of plain flour measured out, 55 grams of currants. I've separated an egg, so we've got the egg yolk and the egg white, and there are videos online to show you how to do that if you're not sure. And I've also got a few tablespoons, 3 tablespoons of milk, although I may not need all of that. We'll see how we go as we progress through the video. So the first thing that we need to do is soften up the butter and the sugar. Now it is easier if you had left it to soften up a bit. I have left this to soften, but it hasn't softened quite as much as I would have liked. But what you need to do, what you can see, I'm not stirring here. I'm pressing the butter against the side of the mixing bowl, just to try and soften it up that bit further and mix it in with the sugar. So depending on how soft your butter is, that can be quite a it's not a long process, but it's not quite as quick as mixing up your soft margarine. So you just keep doing that, working it with the spoon until it's all softened up. So this is going to take me, well, probably a couple of minutes, so I will give that a mix and then come back to you. Okay, so if you keep working your mixture, I promise you it will come to this consistency, although as I said, it can take a little bit of time to get there. So the next thing we're going to do now is add in our egg yolk. So just pop that in and again mix that around. Now when we're doing, because these are biscuits, we want to roll out the dough, so we're going to be looking for quite a stiff dough. Although, as I said, at this stage it doesn't look so much because we've got quite, as I said, the butter's been beaten, so it goes a little bit more liquidy, and obviously the egg yolk is liquidy, and you can see there it's a very, very strong coloured egg yolk. It has made my mixture go a nice orange colour. So the next thing that we're going to put in there now is the flour. Now again, this could take a little while to mix in because it is going to get quite stiff, but that's how we want it. I've also put on here, the recipe says to use some mixed spice. I don't have any mixed spice, but I do have cinnamon. So I've just put a teaspoon of cinnamon in there as well. So we just now need to mix this around. Okay, so, well, I say mix, I'm not doing a mix in the traditional sense. I'm just trying to bring the mixture together as much as I can. So again, using the back of the wooden spoon, okay, to try and pull all that mixture in together like a dough. Now again, I'm not going to keep showing you this because I'm just doing exactly the same thing each time. When it gets to the stage where it's starting, as I said, you can just see that it's actually starting to come into bigger lumps. Okay, pop your currants in there as well to make sure that they are mixed then right the way through. So pretty much this stage, just like a shortbread mixture, okay, apart from the fact we wouldn't use an egg, but we're just actually trying to bring all of the mixture together until it forms into a dough. Now it could be that you keep doing that and it's really not coming together, so depending on the size of your egg yolk, you may need to add a little bit of the milk into there as well. Okay, but again, just add a small bit and then keep adding that if you need to until you've got a firm dough. But make sure that you're doing enough mixing in between, because very often just the mixing will get it to form together. Okay, you can see, hopefully you can see that's starting to clump together now. So just keep in doing that a bit longer until we have a ball of dough. Now if you look, again, I don't know if you can see so well on the video, but it's actually really started now to come together into big clumps. So at this stage now, I can get my hands into the bowl and it should all come together as one ball of dough. Hopefully, as I said, I know usually I do things on video and they don't work out as well as they do when I'm not videoing myself. Okay, so just squishing that together in the bowl until we've got one ball of dough. Now, the recipe that I'm following today, this is the first time I've done this recipe, the recipe doesn't actually say what thickness to roll these out to, but traditionally Garibaldi biscuits wouldn't be overly thick. They are quite a thin biscuit. So just put some flour down on my surface and I'm going to start rolling that out. Again, just making sure I got a bit of flour on the top as well, or you can flour your rolling pin, whichever way you prefer to do that. So I'm just going to roll out my dough, making sure, what I usually tend to do, roll it in a couple of directions, but also, more importantly than that, just pick it up between rolls just to make sure that you have got enough flour down there and it's not actually sticking. So I don't know, as I said, if you can tell, but I've got it probably just under 1 centimetre thick there. So I'm going to start cutting those out now. When you cut them out, mixtures are generally better if you don't re-roll them many times. So when you're cutting out your biscuits, try and cut them as closely together as you can. There's no harm, you can re-roll your mixture, your dough, and get some more out of there. But as I said, certainly I know with scones, it's better to get as many as you can out of the first batch and not re-roll your mixture any more than you need to. So just as I said, getting those, that one's falling apart, so we can put him back together. As I said, no problem there. So just getting as many as you can, as I said, out of that first cut. Okay, some of these are not being as successful as I would have liked. And then what you're going to do, when you've cut through all of those, get yourself your greased baking tray and then pop your cookies onto the baking tray. So you do that with all of your dough. Okay, as I said, you can re-roll it. There's no harm in re-rolling it. But try and get, as I said, as many as you can out of that first roll before you re-roll it. And then just when you re-roll it, try and do it to the same thickness to make sure that your cookies all cook at the same rate. And as I said, I'm just going to redo that now with the rest of the dough until I've got my trays of cookies. Okay, so when I've got 2 trays of biscuits, so as you can see, the mixture does make quite a few biscuits. Now these are going to go into the oven first of all for 10 minutes. Now there's a 2-stage cooking process to these, so they're going to go in for 10 minutes to start with, and then I'm going to take them out and I'll show you obviously what gets done to them then. So these go into gas mark 3, which is 170 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. If you don't have any Easter shaped cookie cutters, or you're making these and it's not Easter time, then obviously, like I've said before, you could just use a circular cutter, or if you don't have a cutter, just use a glass to cut them out. So after 10 minutes, you need to very carefully, because obviously your tray is going to be very hot, as if, well, anytime you take anything out of the oven. They are going to go back into the oven though. So some of you may be thinking, well, why did we need the egg white? We didn't do anything with the egg white. After 10 minutes, get your biscuits out, brush over the top of them with the egg white. Okay, so that's over all of them, and then sprinkle over some sugar, and then they are going to go back into the oven for another 5 to 10 minutes until they are a nice golden brown colour. So obviously you do that with all of your biscuits. So just brush the top with the egg white and then sprinkle some sugar over the top. And again then, very carefully, because as you know your tray's hot, okay, pop those back into the oven for, as I said, about another 5 to 10 minutes until they're a nice golden brown colour. So I pop those back in the oven for another 10 minutes. Okay, as well, maybe you can see if you've ever had any of the Garibaldi biscuits from the supermarket. Okay, the colouring looks very similar on there. So I'm just going to gently lift them off and pop them onto a cooling rack. Now you could just eat these exactly as they are, or if you wanted to go a step further, you could obviously pop some icing on them or use some of the decorating pens that you can get from the supermarket. Okay, personally, I think they look lovely just as they are, and they would make a really nice present if you fancied doing some home baking for somebody over the Easter holidays. So as I say at the end of every video, hopefully it's something you fancy having a go at, and if you do have a go at this and you want to send me any photos of what you managed to make, that would be fantastic. Okay, I look forward to seeing what some of you might be able to do.